Well, hello, everybody. We are back again. I am your host, Adam Cuppy, and my guest today is the myth, the man, the legend. I don't know if any of that's true. I don't know. But this is Josh Maurer. He was a recent graduate of Learn Academy from the Alpha 2023 cohort. At some point in time, we'll probably talk about how we do Alpha, Beta, Charlie, Delta, all the things. But trust me when I say a recent cohort. So Josh now has been in the field working professionally in a multitude of different ways over the last many months. And I want to just kind of talk about that. But first, Josh, thank you for joining me today. And let's take a big step back. Give me a little bit of your origin story. Let's start with this question. What did you want to be as a kid?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, Adam. So funny you bring up that statement you started with. I may or may not be that, but my kids bought me a T-shirt for Father's Day that said I am that, so we'll roll with it. Um, Growing up, I was always the kid that take things apart. Sometimes I put it back together, sometimes I wouldn't. So, um, kind of like a spaceship engine, like spaceship mechanic is like the big thing. I always wanted to work on spaceships and planes. So that was really kind of growing up what I wanted to do. Now I ended up wrenching along the way, but I never was that spaceship or airline mechanic yet. Plenty of future to come. So
Now, what got you in that? What gave you that idea? Did you have, was it just like the standard, I want to be a cowboy or a spaceship, an astronaut? I was trying to think. I was like, what is a spaceship mechanic? I think they're called
right.
astronauts up in space. I don't know. Where did that come? Like, where did that come from?
Hands down, 80s Legos. Loved Legos,
Yes.
always have, still to this day. But they always had the spaceship Legos, and that was my favorite growing up. So that's what I wanted to do for the longest time.
Yeah. So how long did that last before? Now, did you stay on that course? I'm assuming that maybe not, but did you pursue that at all as a kid in high school, maybe even into early upper ed, anything like that?
Not the spaceship or aeronautics side. So mechanic, yes. So I actually ended up starting to be a bicycle mechanic from about the time I was 14 years old till in my early 20s. So constantly wrenching. I worked for a couple different local shops, and then ended up working for a couple domestic professional race teams and traveling around with them for a summer. So always
Interesting.
trying to fix it. That was something I've always enjoyed.
What were the attributes about that really got you hooked in terms of more specifically like the mechanic side of it? Was it just something? Did you ever want to be? Speaking of cycling, did you ever want to be a cyclist, or was it more just the bicycle mechanic work that was drawing you? Like, what about all of that was really interesting?
So it a little bit of both. I always like to know how things work. That's always been the case. I was literally that kid that took the microwave apart growing up and had no idea how to put it back together. So my parents ended up buying like four microwaves along the lines. Um, but as far as the bicycle mechanic thing, that's I wanted to figure out how it worked. I strive for that, and then the racing kind of and riding just kind of came along with it. It's that culture. It's a tight knit
Mm-hmm.
community, and that kind of came by proxy. What I will say is, as I got older and decided I liked running and hiking more, the riding kind of tapered off a little bit, but the mechanics and wondering about how things worked and figuring out how they work, that's stuck to this day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember as a kid, mine was much more artistic expression. So I wouldn't call myself a mechanic, but I always had an aptitude towards computers in some way. And that really resonated what you were saying there about like taking things apart and wanting to put them together and understand them and like just understanding the bits and pieces. One of the common misunderstandings is what are the things coming into the programming industry you should know, or do you need to have been building websites before you started programming? Do you need to be great at math? Things like that. So, how much of that kind of stereotypical behavior was true for you before you dove into software development? Any of it?
Um, some of it. I first looked at getting into software development like right before COVID hit, like end of 2019. There was a couple boot camps that were Java based. I looked into them, and that's where I was like, oh man, I might need more of this. I might need to have this extensive background in whether it be math or building websites and things like that. Um, I kind of drifted away from that just due to some life stuff at the time, but I still kind of dabbled in it, and that's when I kind of started to figure out that hey, I don't need to go into this knowing everything. The whole part of the journey is learning it as you go, right? picking it up, seeing what's applicable to you and your specific journey and your specific experiences along the way. So that was something that really, as I spent more time in it and developed myself, that I really kind of found out that you don't need to have a specific skill set going into it. Just an open mind, willingness to learn, and continue forward.
So the willingness to learn, like what was some area that you found yourself always being drawn to try to understand? Was it just how the pieces came together, or I don't know, like what part of that drew you in all the time?
It was how the pieces go together. Like I would see this finished product. I've known plenty of friends and relatives that were software developers or built websites on the side or anything, and I saw the finished product. I always like to know what's the nuts and bolts, whether it be of a physical mechanical piece or whether it be a website or a web application or the video games I played growing up. Throwing back to like Daggerfall back in the day and Zork and all that stuff. How does that go
Yeah.
together, and how does that get from this computer to whether it be something like that's terminal up to the screen and stuff like that. I just love understanding how things work, and that's really a lot of what's driven me forward.
Now, did you do anything in web application or design before you started the program? Did you build websites or anything along those lines?
Websites, no. So a little bit more of the background. I was a bomb tech, so an explosive ordnance disposal technician in the Army, and then I did some government contracting. But a lot of what I ended up doing was coffee manufacturing and beer manufacturing. So a lot of my actual initial exposure to that was PLC programming, like how to make adjustments to the packaging machines and the manufacturing machines, and how to adjust those more manufacturing based programs to the needs that I had at the time.
So I would imagine that um, a lot of that was, well, I want to take a step back because I'm curious about how much of that has translated over now that you've kind of moved into software development. Do you feel like you have taken a lot of that with you, or is that stuff that was like good, kind of dip your toe in the water experience and but very new now, but you're glad you did it to understand it? Like, how has it played a role in what you do today?
It's actually been huge because it's that following that process and troubleshooting has been massive. Going into something not knowing the person that left it to you. So being able to go in, kind of figure it out. You may not be given all the tools, but learning how to learn, right? Learning how to troubleshoot. Being able to, okay, I don't know this. Where can I go to figure out what I need to know to get the job done? A lot of what I've done my entire life is operational based, right? Like you've got this endpoint, you need to get there, and you're over here, and one way or another, you need to figure out that path from A to B. And so that type of experiences in my past has been absolutely invaluable when it comes to whether it be learning new technologies, debugging. It's been huge. But yeah, just kind of A to B. I'm at A. I need to get to B, and I really need to figure out how I'm going to get there. And those experiences have really, really been helpful along the way.
So does it feel like the timing of joining a trade school program like a boot camp, was that well timed for you, or do you feel like you would have done it sooner? Is there something you wish you would have done in the meantime and done a little later? Like, how did that fit for you on your trajectory and life path as you kind of look back at it?
Since I've fallen in love with software development, I definitely was like, oh, I wish I would have been doing this last 20 years. However, what I would say though is I don't know if I would have been as successful because those life experiences really added up to a point where it's like I really made the decision. This is what I want to do. This is the path I'm going to be on. And now, how do I get and continue along that path? So I would say as much as it would have been great to have done it in 2020, or as great as it would have been to just come right out of high school, go into college, get my computer science degree and go from there. I don't know if I would have been as successful or have enjoyed it or fallen in love with software development as much if I hadn't had all those previous life experiences that led up to the point where I finally made the decision, stopped hemming and hawing, made the leap, and went that direction.
So going through the program, we've got some kind of fundamental skills of software development that come about.